The Last Customer. Chapter 1. The Night Shift. The protagonist, a tired gas station worker named Raj, begins his routine night shift at a remote gas station on the edge of town. The station stands isolated, surrounded by a stretch of empty road and fields that vanish into the dark. The air outside is chilly, and inside, the buzz of flickering fluorescent lights creates an odd comfort. Raj pours himself a stale cup of coffee and flips through a worn-out magazine, glancing occasionally at the door. The clock ticks slowly. He's used to the solitude, the occasional trucker, a lost traveler. But tonight, there's something heavier in the silence. Even the insects seem quiet. The hum of the overhead lights feels louder, like a whisper building in tension. He checks the pumps from the window. No movement, no lights down the road. The CCTV screens show still frames of the aisles, stock shelves untouched. The only sound is the faint thrum of an old freezer in the back, rattling every few minutes like a cough in a dead room. He shrugs off the sense of unease and pulls out his phone, but there's no signal. No messages, no notifications, as if the world outside has gone still. Midnight is still a couple of hours away, but the night already feels like it's holding its breath. Chapter 2. The Silent Man. At exactly 11:58 p.m., the gas station door creaked open with an unnatural slowness. The sound cut through the still air like a blade. Raj looked up from the counter expecting the usual late-night customer, but what he saw made his breath catch. A tall man stepped inside. His movements were fluid, yet stiff, as though each step were being recalled from memory. He wore a long black coat buttoned up to the collar, though it wasn't cold enough for such heavy clothing. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes were hidden under the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. What stood out most, however, was his silence. Not a word, not even the sound of breathing. He walked slowly through the aisles, his footsteps making no sound on the linoleum floor. Raj watched him closely. The man pointed at an old glass soda bottle from the vintage fridge, one Raj didn't even know was still stocked, and then at a candy bar that hadn't sold in years. Raj scanned them and quoted the price, his voice cracking slightly in the thick silence. Without a word, the man reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather pouch. From it, he dropped a few coins onto the counter. They clinked against the surface with a strange weight. Old, tarnished coins that looked like they belonged in a museum. Raj picked them up instinctively. They were cold, unnaturally cold, like they'd just been pulled from frozen earth. These are real?" Raj murmured to himself, but the man was already turning to leave. The door creaked open again and shut behind him. Raj stood frozen for a moment. The coins were still in his hand. Something about them sent a ripple of dread down his spine. He shook off the feeling and placed them in the drawer. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe he was just a weird collector. But deep inside, a voice whispered, "That man wasn't normal." Chapter 3. Something's off. Raj stared at the coins for several minutes after the man left. Their edges were uneven, worn smooth from age. One had a face he didn't recognize, some monarch or president that wasn't part of any currency he knew. The dates on them were faded but legible, 1842, 1867, 1891. He picked up one, felt its chill seep into his palm, and set it back down. He reached for his phone to look them up, but remembered again. No signal. Frustrated, but now genuinely curious, he turned to the security monitor behind the counter. The footage was already rolling from the last few minutes. He scrubbed back to 11:58 p.m. The camera facing the entrance showed the door closed. No one entered. Confused, Raj rewound and played it again. The exact moment he remembered the man walking in, the door remained shut. There was no creak, no movement, just stillness. He fast-forwarded to the moment the man should have been at the counter. On the monitor, Raj was talking to thin air. His arms moved, scanning empty space. He reached out and grabbed something invisible from the shelf. He placed invisible items on the counter and spoke to no one. A chill settled into his chest. He scrubbed through every camera angle. Nothing. No man, no coat, no shadow. Just Raj performing an eerie pantomime. The items soda and candy appeared to move, but there was no visible cause. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen, heart thudding against his ribs. Either he was hallucinating, or something far stranger had just occurred. He looked down at the drawer again. The coins were still there. Cold and completely out of time. Chapter 4. No one was there. Raj couldn't stop watching the footage. Every time he rewound and played it again, the same surreal image played out. Himself, animated and speaking, arms gesturing as though someone stood before him. But there was no one there. He zoomed in, switched angles, slowed the playback. Still nothing. Just himself, caught in an inexplicable performance. The soda bottle lifted off the shelf and hovered toward the counter. The candy bar slid down as if pushed by unseen hands. And then Raj's hand extended forward, giving out what should have been change, but to empty space. His heart was pounding so loudly he could hear it echo in the cramped station office. Goosebumps crawled up his arms. What the hell was this? A glitch? A prank? But how could anyone fake the coins? He opened the drawer and held one up again. The cold metal almost stung his skin. He turned back to the screen. The playback now showed the moment the man should have left. The door swung open slowly, air rushing in as papers fluttered near the entrance. But again there was no visible figure, no coat, no boots, no sound of footsteps, just Raj, standing frozen, watching something leave that only he could see. He checked the other cameras in the building, aisle cams, outside cams, the pump feed. Nothing. Not a single frame showed the pale man. It was as if Raj had dreamed the entire event. Yet the items were on the counter. The register recorded the transaction. The coins were still sitting like anchors from another era. He sat there, stunned. It felt like reality had split, that he'd glimpsed something just outside the reach of human senses, something that obeyed different rules. And yet, a part of him was certain this wasn't the first time it had happened, just the first time he'd noticed. Outside, the night deepened. The gas station lights flickered once, as if reacting to something unseen. Raj didn't move. There was no one there, but something had definitely come and gone. Chapter 5. The Forgotten. Raj didn't sleep that morning. As dawn barely touched the sky outside, he sat hunched at the counter, sipping the same cold coffee, staring at the drawer full of coins that shouldn't exist. He needed answers. Something, anything to explain the impossible. He pulled out the dusty desktop in the back office, its fan whining like a trapped insect. Internet was slow, but functioning now. Raj started digging. News archives, local history blogs, even forums filled with conspiracy theories and ghost sightings. For hours he searched. Most of it was noise, urban legends and folklore. But then, buried in an old local newspaper archive from the 1950s, he found something. A small, grainy article, "Mysterious Fire Claims Life of Local Traveler." The photo was aged and blurred, but Raj leaned in. A tall man, pale, wearing a long coat and hat. The article described a fire that had broken out in a boarding house not far from the current site of the gas station. Only one person died, a reclusive traveler named Unknown. Witnesses described him as polite, soft-spoken, odd, paid with outdated currency, always arrived at night. Raj kept scrolling, his heart in his throat. Over the next several decades, similar accounts appeared like echoes through time. A silent man, always just before midnight. He'd visit roadside diners, convenience stores, and gas stations, always ones built near that same location, always alone, always the last customer of the night, always paying in antique coin. Locals had begun to call him the last customer. He wasn't a ghost in the traditional sense. There was no screaming, no flickering lights or cold gusts of air. Just a routine, an echo that repeated itself across time like a worn-out film reel. Some thought he didn't even know he was dead. Others said he was searching for something. Redemption, recognition, or maybe just a final transaction left undone. Raj sat back in his chair, numb. The coins were still in the drawer. He could feel their weight from across the room, heavy with history, with presence. And though the sun was rising, painting the windows with pale gold, he felt no warmth. He knew somewhere out there in the dark, the last customer was still walking, still returning. And next time,